I want the trades to get better. I do not want a world where it is told go to college, 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 or you're going to dig ditches, which, don't get me wrong, dug my share of ditches. But I want that to change, and the trades can do that.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your host, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you again and looking forward to another great episode. This time, we're bringing on the show Matt Mihalek. He is the National Director of Electrical Growth for Apex Service Partners, and we are looking forward to having him on the show today to talk about things like comfort zone, blinders, and so much more. It's going to be a great conversation, and you know we always make it applicable to all the trades and beyond. So stay tuned, even if you don't have any love for the electricians. We don't either, but every once in a while we have to bring them on. So it's going to be a conversation. We are looking forward to having Matt on. But before we get to that part, we're going to have a little bit of an introduction for you ourselves. And we're going to start off with Brian and our quote.
Reading is equivalent to thinking with someone else's head instead of one's own. Arthur Schopenhauer.
I like that one. That's good.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. I sat back and thought about that a little bit after I read it. Yeah. I mean, and how cool is it to okay, I want to break down this subject or this topic, right? And instead of really sitting down and mulling it over, you go, wait, let me see what, whatever the topic is, what Albert Einstein had to say about this topic. And now all of a sudden I go from, I'm a plumber, so 72 IQ to 160 or whatever, Albert Einstein's was. And you get to, all of a sudden, you just get to kind of borrow somebody else's brain. And you don't think of reading someone else's work like that. But man, it's pretty accurate. That was a great quote. And it made me want to do more reading, not obviously with books, but, audio books.
Does that count for having three people involved in the conversation if a different person's reading it to you?
I'll take it. Yeah, I'm tripling my IQ.
No, that's a good one. In reality, Brian, we are hopefully accomplishing the same thing from an audio perspective when it comes to this podcast, in that when we bring on a guest, we are helping you process through a thought that maybe is something you've already put some effort into, or maybe not. But regardless, you get to hear the concepts, ideas of the guest and our own commentary along the way and help you to process through that perhaps faster or more holistically than you would have by yourself.
Yeah. And when you're talking someone who went from an apprentice and worked his way all the way up to a national director of an organization that's, I don't know what they're doing, probably close to $200 million in revenue this year. You're talking about someone who has gotten to the point where most of you listening are, and then gotten past it, and then gotten past that point, and past that point, and on and on and on. And you get to just kind of borrow the brain of somebody who's excelled at the level you're at and then hit all these other levels after it. And we get to just kind of dig into his mind a little bit and hear what he did and what he thought that helped him get there. And, Waste No Day, we talk about who's in your passenger seat. Well, realistically, it's like Nate said, in any given Monday, you've got three people in your passenger seat. And Nate, myself, and the guest all come from somewhat different walks of life, and we've accomplished different things. But when we get to breaking down a point, it's like your brain is processing everything we're saying and sifting through and deciding what's trash and what's really good content, and throwing the bath water out, but hopefully keeping the baby. And when the episode ends, or when that part ends, you get to then take it a step further as far as you want to go on any topic we bring up. So at least, hopefully, what we're doing is just igniting some kind of spark in you mentally, where you have a new idea to ponder and mull over, and maybe something that takes you off into superstardom. And we get to know that we were the people that helped plant the seed, man.
It really is a wonder why anybody listens to the Brian and Nate only episodes at this point.
It's an even bigger wonder why 3 of them are in the top 10 most downloaded episodes all time, with number 1 being one of them.
I know you paid some like Asian company to just absolutely hammer downloads.
There are some podcasts in our space that do that, but Waste No Day ain't one of them, bro.
Well, this is going to be a good conversation, and we're going to be talking about the idea of expanding your comfort zone, or perhaps letting go of your comfort zone and stepping into some other areas of the house and perhaps even your career, so that you can not only advance your level of service to the client, but potentially your own income and your own advancement in what it means to be in your trade. So looking forward to that. But before we get to that great part of the show, it's time to spend a little bit of time highlighting one of our amazing listeners. Brian, who is in the special spotlight today?
Yes, special spotlight. If you don't think they're practicing, then it just kind of cuts off. And I'm just going to fill it in for them. Because again, when you do the title, you get like 5 words. I know it sucks. But then Apple just cuts them off. And they don't tell you that when you fill the review out. I'm going to say, if you don't think they practice what they preach, you're dead right. These guys are terrible in person. I'm guessing. I'm spitballing here. I'm thinking
who is getting fired tomorrow?
5 stars. I've been fortunate to be in the trades for 18 years, 12 of which I hated waking up to get out of bed and go to work. I know that pain. Brian hired me and showed me the way. He and Nate invested in me like nobody ever had before. Glad to call these guys my mentors, but even happier to call them friends. Listen to every episode and learn something new every week. Keep doing the good work, fellas. The trades need you. Smooth Operator 717.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that limits it down to one side of the shop.
That limits it down to at least the shop Nate's at that has 80 technicians. And then a lot of CSRs and dispatchers that we also invested in. Yeah, this is one I wish we had a first name at least, you know. But
all right.
Hey, Smooth Operator 717. We appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, we do.
Or sis. You know, there's been some female texts come through there too.
Could be. All right. Well,
most of them would not have good things to say about Nate, though, because most people think Nate hates them.
Well,
sorry, not hates. He always looks like he's mad at me is the most common. Anytime I ask what someone thinks of Nate, they're like, he seems all right, but I think he's always mad at me.
It's my cheery demeanor, obviously.
That is correct.
Well,
if he smiles 20 times in a day, 18 of them are recording an episode of Waste No Day, and the other 2 are probably for his wife and kids. 1 each.
Yes, that's 1 for my wife and then 1 for all 4 children simultaneously. So, hope you were there to witness it, kids.
I sneezed, Dad. Well, tomorrow might be a better day.
I missed it, Dad. Well, that'll teach you. Okay. Well, anyways, thank you, Smooth Operator. We appreciate that. Stop by my office and let me know it was you. I'd sure appreciate that too. All right. Well, we know what you're going to appreciate is a great conversation today about expanding your comfort zone. And it's time now to put Mr. Matt Mihalek in your passenger seat. Our guest today is Matt Mihalek. He has been in the electrical trade for nearly 3 decades now. He is an electrical license holder for 5 states. Surprised he can count that high. The first of which he earned by the time that he was 25. He has run smaller residential companies doing new construction and doing custom homes, commercial work. And he eventually decided that he valued the skills that he brought to the table as a tradesman and that he was only to be compensated in the service industry. He's held every possible position in the industry, including apprentice, electrician, lead electrician, service technician, safety advisor, branch manager, head of purchasing, regional director, and the one he holds now as National Director of Electrical Growth. As the father of 3 and husband to an Italian wife, that will and does stab if she's not happy with him. He believes greatly that the service industry and the trades in general are a path to financial freedom, success, and to achieve the goals set for your life. Focusing on the almighty dollar is the wrong path to success in the industry. Investment into technicians, their skills, knowledge, growth, and personal goals are the foundational avenue for any business to succeed. And when those items are truly focused on, the revenue is a result to gauge the success you've had in changing your technicians' lives. Generally, he considers himself to be hard-headed, stubborn, talkative, and an electrical craftsman at heart. And we're hoping it's going to be a great conversation today. Welcome here, Matt.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me and inviting me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on, buddy. We've been chatting back and forth and sharing some knowledge and some history of the trades, and I thought it would be fun to have you on, man. Share that knowledge with the whole audience.
If nothing else, make fun of everybody, right? Or each other.
Sorry, with our dozens and dozens of audience. I was that one's for J-Dub. I was on HVAC Masters of the Hustle a few weeks ago, and he always says there's thousands and thousands of listeners. And I said we poke fun at him all the time on Waste No Day by saying our dozens and dozens of listeners. Although we aspire to one day have dozens of listeners at the same time.
Also not related listeners, which would be great.
It's what the listeners do with it in the end that matters.
That's true. And that's a great little bit of a preview about what we'll be talking about today, I'm sure. Before we do that, though, Matt, we always love to learn a little bit about our guest and about your story. So let's start with the beginning.
Beginning of my career, beginning of my entire story, to be fair.
Career, please. Good grief. Are you kidding me? These electricians, man.
Well, I do think there's something interesting to the origin story of why you chose the career. So maybe if you want to start there.
I can do that. Like most people, to make money, I had a paycheck. I needed to, right? Like I had children young. I am an electrician, so divorce is part of the gig. So I was 18, needed a job. A good friend of mine said, "Hey, you want to come wire homes?" I said, "Sure, whatever." $6 an hour wiring homes. My father, however, was a national account executive for Procter & Gamble. Told me my entire life that I needed to be in sales. I could always talk. Of course, being a great electrician that I am, I gave the finger, said, nope, not going to be for me. Got into electrical, the normal thing with electrical or any of the trades, right? New construction, commercial, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, I was like, you know what? I can talk. And I'm tired of eating ramen noodles. So I started, I equated it eventually in my head to I do side work. And I have no trouble in the world when I go and do side work, talking to people and actually presenting and going, hey, look, this costs this amount. So why couldn't I put it in play really professionally? And I started building electrical service departments for companies before I even really truly understood the call and how to run the call properly and the process and the system. And so I made a career out of doing that. And eventually, you guys, I'll name drop, right? You guys know Brian Richards. Everybody knows Brian Richards to some level or has heard his name. He and I have been friends since we were 17, and he was working for Mister Sparky. And I used to call, and I used to go, man, how much do you charge to change out a panel? And he would tell me, and I go, whoa, what? What are you doing? Seriously? And he knew me well, and it was an epiphany moment for me. Probably not for everybody else in the world, but he said, hey, Matt, what's it cost to get you out of bed? And I said, what? He goes, are you $25 an hour? And I was like, no. 35? Nope. 45? And he kept going, right? And he said, look, I get paid what I'm worth here. Don't you deserve that? And I thought, okay, I get it. I still didn't work for a professional company for years. I ended up at Mister Sparky in Florida, 2016. And I went back out in the field, as a matter of fact, because as good as I was, I had never ran the system, had no idea. Was taught options or saw somebody give options, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what is that? And they were like, well, we give solutions, different ones. And I said, oh, that's brilliant. And I did very well out in the field. I think I spent 6 to 8 months out there as a normal service tech, averaging, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000 a month sold and installed. And this is what, 2016, 2017. Got to be a safety advisor, eventually moved into management. Mister Sparky in Florida grabbed the Tampa branch that was there, that still is there, turned it around and got it profitable and running. And I kept sticking my hand up and going, hey, look, I want more. I want more. I want more. I get bored pretty easily. Moved into a regional director role, spent some time as well as in charge of procurement and material management and things of that nature. I'm going to brag, right? Kept our material spend at 9% on $71 million in revenue for about 3 years. I don't know anybody that's done that yet. So did that for a while. Always wanted to come to North Carolina. Built a house here in Asheville, said that's where I'm going. I'd like for us all to go, but in the end, it wasn't the plan. So I went. It's a dream to live in the mountains. So it's what I did. Took about 8 months off. Then APS pursued me for a number of months, brought me on to help them grow electrical in the Atlantic region. Did that. We took it from 100, probably about 1.5 a year to 24 million a year in 1 year organically.
Wow.
We only had 7 total tech net growth at the time in the region. Now I'm in charge. They asked me if I'd step in to help with electrical growth for the nation. And that's what I'm doing currently. Get to touch a lot of technicians, get to coach a lot of people, and hopefully steer them in the right direction.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate you taking some time out of your night to join us for this conversation. Sounds like it's going to be a good one. So, Matt, I want to focus back on a perspective opportunity, or call it a moment in time that was decisive for you. You said that Brian Richards called you, or you called him, I don't recall, but you had a conversation and you found out how much he was charging for a panel. And when he told you, some guys hear that number or hear that concept and they say, you bunch of ripoffs, you thieves, like you're cheating, you're pulling it over on old ladies, like all these things. But that wasn't your reaction to it. I want to get your perspective on, number one, why do some people inherently hear that number, or hear, HVAC, plumbing, whatever it is, like hear that top echelon price point, and they go immediately to like all the negatives about how the company is like bad, terrible, awful, ripping them off, blah, 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 blah. Why do some guys naturally go there, and why weren't you one of them?
Value, self-value. And I think the world as a whole taught us for years that college and degrees and corporate jobs and office jobs was the only way to be successful. And this is just my view, right? We were construction workers. And I think most still consider us that, and when I say most, I mean us in the trades. And we can't imagine charging somebody what it's really worth for our knowledge. We don't value our knowledge. I'm prideful, just like every great electrician. I never had trouble saying, hey, look, that's what it cost. And I was tired of eating ramen noodles, right? So when Brian had understood my struggle to try and make money, just like all of us do in the trades at some point, and it just stuck with me. And to be fair, there were probably those moments that I said the things that you're mentioning that, most people say, like, whoa, can't believe you're charging that, taking advantage of people, gouging, etc. But I never found a company that would pay me what I was worth. We'll jump ship for $1, like $1 an hour, and you can get an electrician, a plumber, HVAC guy easily. But what if it didn't have to be that way, right? Like, what if they charged enough, they could pay me enough? And so it was my self-value more than anything that stuck with me. And I thought, okay, wait a minute. They can afford me. I know they can afford me. And I was okay with it. It took a while. It did at first. We all step into it, and y'all see it. Got to forgive the y'all, right? Georgia, born and raised. That's the way it comes out of my face. But we get new technicians. We get new employees all the time that look at the price book immediately and go, whoo, I can't charge people that. Like, why not? Just because they can't fathom the fact that they're worth that. It's my take on it.
There was a point in your life, though, that you accepted working for $6 an hour. Like, I mean, obviously you had to make a paycheck. So, sometimes you have to make those decisions. But there was a point in your life where you said, yeah, all right, $6, I'll do this. So did you evolve into this different version of yourself, or was it always there and you had just accepted a lower standard?
I think I accepted the lower standard for myself. I was pretty lucky in how I was raised, the parents that I had, and the standard that was set. I was very adamant and hard-headed about my life and said, I'll do it differently. And in the end, I did, but I had to take my knocks. I had to take my licks, right? I had to learn hard, just like a lot of people do. And I just got tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking $6 an hour, but you're not talking $6 an hour as a master licensed electrician. You're talking $6 an hour learning a trade.
That's fair, right? Like, that's our education process.
Mm-hmm.
But even when I got my first licensed in 5 states now. I got my first license when I was 25. And even then, I remember topping out at, I want to say 52, maybe 60,000 a year. And that sounds like great money at some point in your life, right? But I still couldn't make ends meet. I couldn't take vacations, couldn't buy a new car, lived week to week. And I was like, I was resigned to the fact at some point, I am never going to retire. I am never going to be anything more than just an electrician, construction worker, etc. And I think I just grew tired of it and started going, how do I change the game, right? It can't be just digging ditches. It has to be, how do I work with my mind? How do I put the things that I can say in play? And how do I make that work? Because people do it. Certainly I'm capable of doing it too.
So I think this is an important discussion, Matt. Are you familiar with the concept called Imposter Syndrome?
Vaguely. May not know it as such.
I'm certainly not a psychologist or anything like that. But basically, like, the idea is that even people who are performing at incredible levels, at high levels, or in leadership roles or some type of thing, even if they're carrying this like facade of confidence and persuasion and just like they're leading well and doing all these things, a lot of times inside there is this feeling that I am an imposter and it's only a matter of time until somebody figures out that I'm not supposed to be here. And I wonder if that, like, how pervasive that concept is in the trades, where it's like they're paying me how much to do this work? Like, I mean, yeah, I'll take it until finally somebody gets wise and says, like, what are we doing? Like, we're paying this knucklehead how much for this job? Right. So like, I mean, you mentioned the fact about self-worth and you had the benefit of a solid upbringing and all those things, but not everybody had that. And even the people who are performing at high levels still have that self-doubt buried inside, saying like, when are the cameras going to show up? Like, when's the curtain going to fall? And like, when's this all going to disappear? Because like, this can't be real. So like, what do you say to the little boy inside, if you will, who's like basically saying like, I know I'm going to get kicked off the team at some point, Matt, just cover my eyes and hope I wake up and it's not today.
I think everybody feels like that from time to time anyway, right? I chuckle. My wife chuckles on occasion. I consider myself an electrician. I do. But I am a corporate executive. And we chuckle on occasion that I am where I am and I've done what I've done. So I earn it. That's how I come to terms with it. And I know I'm not a fake. I work. I earn it. I put my time in. I change. I adapt. I learn. And I just learn it. And I think for those people that feel that way, right? Put your nose to the grindstone. Like, truly try to earn that paycheck and it will continue to grow and grow and people will pay you better and you will be more valued. You cannot just fake it completely. It has to be from the heart. Or eventually it will catch up. It does.
Yeah. And yeah, people are only going to pay for something so long that doesn't work.
That's right.
That's for sure.
That's right.
Somehow Nate and I keep skating by, but eventually it's catching up. But
can you believe, Brian, people are still listening to this podcast?
Right. Well, once in a while, a guest comes in and brings some value, so it makes sense. Today being one of those days. Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Oh, like, feel free to blow my ego up. I'll take it.
That's a great place to start, Matt, because, there's a lot of high performers that listen to this podcast. And I just want to take some time to say, like, listen, you're doing good things. You are, in fact, worth it. Like, keep looking up, keep pursuing the next level because it's out there for you. And there's a certain level of self-belief that you have to have and a certain level of self-doubt that you have to overcome
Very
to
much
continue
so.
succeeding. And like, don't be one of those guys who says, I can only ever rise to this level and that's as far as I'm going to go.
Very much so.
Because you're just putting a glass ceiling above yourself and you're doing yourself and perhaps the entire trade industry as a whole a disservice by putting that type of cap on your career. And so just kudos and words of encouragement for a Monday morning. Keep on keeping on, man.
I had a good friend of mine that when I was regional director at Mister Sparky, he had stepped into the same role. And I had been at it for 6 months or a year longer than him. And I called him about 2 weeks in to his stint. And I said, I just want to let you know you're doing a tremendous job. I know you feel like you're not making progress in the slightest bit and like you're drowning, but I notice it 1 foot in front of the other and you keep going and you're doing just fine. And he said, oh my God, you feel that way too? And I was like, not anymore, but I did, right? Like in the same thing when you step into a van, you step into a new position. It's always that way. It's a little scary and you doubt if you can do it a little bit, and that's okay. But you can overcome that. You just have to continue the steps, the one after the other. You get knocked down, crawl. Just don't stay down. Learn from it, adapt, and keep going. There's so few people that do that in this world. So few.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. And it's predominantly because as humans, we are inclined towards comfort, right? We shy away. You're into Jiu Jitsu, you're into wrestling and, combat sports and things like that. It's not fun getting armbarred and getting, twisted up and all. It's not fun, right? Like it's not fun
Right.
getting your face mopped across the floor. It's uncomfortable.
Yep.
And yet you keep going out there because you want to get better. And that particular line of sports, the only way to get better is to lose and figure out how to not lose the next time through different strategies. And so kind of relating that back into the trades, a lot of electricians, HVAC technicians, and plumbers, they find a certain comfort zone, whether it's in their career or whether it's in the home. And that's something we want to start breaking down today, which is the idea of, have you gotten too comfortable with your process that you've kind of shut off your eyes, your ears, and your observational powers to whatever else is going on out there in the home? So
right.
I want to jump in there in terms of what that means, like from your perspective, and you certainly have a very high level one at this point. What does a comfort zone look like, and how is that something that service professionals should be concerned about or even be aware of?
I think it's applicable on multiple levels, right? When you're a brand new technician coming in, you're comfortable with the way that you did it before. And so that adaptation and that change is very, very hard to get into I need these steps, right? I've got to learn to say what, I've got to go here, when, blah, blah, blah. And so they're very comfortable where they start, and you have to make them very uncomfortable to start to learn. But then it adapts eventually, right? Like what's every technician say when they come in the door? Most, anyway. I'm not a salesman. Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe you're not, right? The world revolves around sales, but I won't go down that avenue. But maybe you're not. But eventually, people, the high performers anyway, a lot of them, not all, go, oh, I am a salesman. But are they? Because they get comfort. They get their comfort level of selling the same thing over and over and over, whether or not it's to pad the paycheck, to get the respect from big tickets, from just the glory of, I won a ring, got to go to, convention, etc. But they lose that. What else do I put in play here? Because it's a comfort zone. They go, well, I'm happy with this. My paycheck's good. I have things that I've never had before. This must be it. I'm doing everything. But there's always so much more if you just open up and go, okay, what am I missing? A big thing that I did, and I recognize that not everybody is me, and you guys probably are the same to be fair. I would work at something until I felt like I had achieved it. And I would grow bored with it. So I needed something else. Or at least if I knew I was working on my system or, how I function to get better and better, I'd go, okay, I'm going to take that. I'm scared to death of it. And I'm going to put it in play just to see how it works. And I wouldn't back off. I'd fail. But we all do, right? You can't go into a home in any way, shape, or form and just focus on the one thing all the time. Brian and I talked earlier about the electricians at the panel. Like, get me to the panel. That's the important part. And I support that. We should always go to the panel. Always. Not immediately, but that's where we end up at some point. But that's not the object you're there for. You may be comfortable with it, but are you growing at that point? Just because you've learned that one skill doesn't mean you've learned the others or that you're even helping that customer the way you need to.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying there, Matt. And so there's multiple levels here, right? You mentioned about like a brand new tech coming in or somebody who's fairly young into the trades. Like they're going to take some time to even find a comfort level. Like they're bouncing all over the place trying to figure out like, well, I've never dealt with this before. This is brand new. And so this is uncomfortable. And then, until they get a bunch of calls under their belt, everything's kind of new. And so there's not a lot of comfort and they're going through a lot of like just abstract exercises and like brand new, like, oh, what do I do here? Type things. And then they finally, get into rhythm. And this is where a lot of techs can exist for years, where it's just like, wake up, hit the call, do the thing, punch the clock, get home, go to bed, repeat. And this is something that we want to, on this particular podcast, we want to push back against because like that is not the waste no day mentality. That is like the just live a day mentality. Like, just
Survive.
whatever. Survive.
It's a
Exactly.
the day. Yeah.
It's not even survive seems like a stretch. It's like, man, if you really think about it, if you could step back or step a 30,000 foot view and see the span of your life from the day you were born to just now. And you go, how many days did I just sit and wait for the Grim Reaper to show up? Or how many days did I really, really live? And, there's a case to be made for then why are we doing this? Work 40 hours a week, 7 hours a week if you're an electrician or 50, 60 if you're in the real trades.
I was going to say, wait, you work 40 hours a week? Can I sign up for that, please? I'll take that.
So there's a case to be made for like, why put yourself through all this or whatever, but we'll save that for another podcast. But if we're striving to, I think every generation feels some weight of this to give the next generation better than what we had, or at least more opportunities than we had, and see a life that we didn't see, which is, I think, why most people go through the grind. It's like, again, if you can step back and look at your life from day one to now, and you can see how many days were burned just existing at best, at worst, just cozying up somewhere and waiting for death to show up. And you had the opportunity to have 10% of those days back to do over, what would you do with them? And if the answer is a hell of a lot more than I've done with them previously, well, guess what? You get one tomorrow. You get one the rest of the day today, and let's do something with it. And that's not just like, I want to go see the world. I believe, and Nate believes, and you sound like you believe, and this podcast is designed to promote every single aspect of our lives, to live out in that way, to strive to get better, to be better, to attain bigger dreams and goals, and just live to your fullest capacity. And then if you just get to a certain level in your career, or in the way you interact with a homeowner, or the way you run a service call, or the time it takes you to install something, or the quality at which you install it. If any one of these things, you just hit this level and you're capped out, what a waste of the rest of your days, the rest of your minutes doing that task. Like every single one of those things you should be striving to get better at.
The technicians and the managers and general managers and presidents and whatnot that I work with and coach on a daily at Sparky, not Sparky, whatever the case may be, I tell them from the beginning, this is a lifestyle choice. This is not a how to run a call. It's applicable, but this trade and this industry as it sits is a lifestyle choice. And okay, you may apply it to a certain thing, like when you walk in the home, keeping your eyes open on everything you can possibly talk about, everything the customer needs. But when you fall in that comfort zone, that's exactly what you're doing in your life. You're stopping, but it doesn't have to be in any way, shape, or form. It's adapting what we do at work. Because I'll tell you guys, one of the biggest fears I have in my life is that I will lay on that deathbed and my daughter. I don't know that my sons matter much. I'm joking. But my daughter, boys are boys, right? But my daughter is standing there, right? And I look, and if I look at her and I think, and my sons too, right? But if I go, man, I should have done something more than just work. Like, I don't want that. That scares the crap out of me. We all do this to make ends meet. We do this to get better. This is not a job. This is a career, but this is really life. And it is so very rare that anybody will pick it up, run with it, put it in play, adapt, change, put something more in play, and just take that next step. I've got a big thing in my drive for work and for my life is to still give the finger to my dad. And I love him to death. Great parent, like apple pie parents, right? Great.
Sounds
parents.
like a great motivator, that's for sure.
But call me an electrician, call me construction, call me blue collar to some level. I still have that tendency. Like if you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you I can do it. I want to do it. I have to prove it to myself because somebody else thinks I can't. And I want the trades to get better. I do not want a world where it is told, go to college, 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 or you're going to dig ditches, which, don't get me wrong, dug my share of ditches. But I want that to change. And the trades can do that for this generation, for the next generation. And it'll morph into life like you're talking about, right? Like waste no day. No way. I get up at 3 a.m. and I don't have to, but I get up at 3 a.m., take my time, do my thing, get ready to do work. And I have never changed that since I started it. And I just put something else in play every day, just like you would on a call.
What belt are you in Jiu Jitsu?
Oh, I got the blue. I haven't done it in a minute. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get it?
About 1.5 years, 2 years.
Nice. They say blue belt's the hardest, right?
Yeah, but then everybody quits at blue.
And they also say that purple is the rarest. Yeah. And now explain quickly, just briefly, what it takes to go from white to blue. Because you can't just go once a month, once every other week and get it at all. You will not get it. For 40 years, you won't get a blue belt. So explain the discipline it takes to go from even white to blue.
Again, lifestyle choice. It really is. It's a total commitment to it. It's mindset, it's heart, it's soul, it's embracing the suck. We all know that saying, right? Like the pain is okay. The failure, how can I adapt? It's just putting it as a personal goal and mission to get there, right?
For sure, Matt. And that's something that, again, we want to push against. And so I want to draw this back into that comfort zone concept we were talking about with the technicians. Like if you were a doctor and you were examining the symptoms of a patient that you suspect is living in the comfort zone of the electrical, plumbing, or HVAC world, what would be some of those things that you would say you might have comfort zone-itis if
you're always just focused on panel replacements, the big ticket items, the things that everybody talks, surge protection, panel replacement, service upgrades. If that is your constant on the electrical side, I can't speak for plumbers and HVAC. I don't think anybody really wants to, but, but if you're an electrician, like that's comfort zone. Redevices is another one, but it's because it'll get you your paycheck. It'll get you some glory, But you don't ever branch off and go, okay, smoke detectors, GFIs, ground systems, what do they need, right? I tell somebody that they have electrical problems, but I don't tell them, hey, look, your smoke detectors are expired, right? They're not willing to go get the ladder, pop it down, take it off the ceiling and go, hey, what year did you say the house was built? 1995? Hey, check out this date right here. This is 1995. Did you know every 8 to 10 years you're supposed to replace these? But I'm telling them their panels got to be replaced, but yet I don't have anything to get their kids out because they're afraid to. Because we teach, unfortunately, more often than not, get to the panel, talk about the panel, it'll get you a big ticket.
So, okay, you've done some examination. What does Dr. Mihalek prescribe for a patient who is suffering some of these symptoms?
Yeah, that's a good question. Which
go to a Jiu Jitsu gym.
There's no electricians there.
Listen, while you mull that over, if you can talk about it, what's Apex shooting for this year? Total revenue.
I'll tell you, trailing 12 months, the electrical side's at about 210 mil.
Whew. Wow.
And
Crazy.
you said you're a regional director?
I'm over the entire nation.
What's your title?
National Electrical Director.
Okay, so you went from electrical apprentice to national director of a $200 million residential service electrical business.
It's a corporate executive, baby.
There you go. Well, that's third degree black belt in electrical terms.
It took years, though, right? Like commitment. It really did. It took, guys, there were weeks I came home to my wife at a certain point, 2 weeks straight that I remember, when I stepped in as a branch manager in Mister Sparky in Florida. And I had worked for companies that thought I was great. I had all these ideas. I put things in play, whatever. I thought I always knew better. The first 2 weeks stepping into that role, I came home and, kid you not, I'm pretty sure there were tears at a certain point. And I said, I do not think I can do this. I do not think I'm capable of this. This is a lot. This is more than I thought. Like, I just don't know. And I felt like that, but they didn't know I felt like that. My team didn't. I came to work every day. I showed up early. Matter of fact, I'd show up earlier than anybody else, obviously. If you don't, by the way, you should be the first guy on site always. But I showed up earlier so that I could do more in the time that I had before I had to get with my team. And I just kept plugging away. And I was always willing to go, I'll do it, even if I had zero clue how to do it. When I stepped into this role, just to further on to it, everybody came to me and they said, man, what's it like? You're in charge of the nation. My comment for the first month was, have you ever been whitewater rafting? Because in whitewater rafting, one of the first things they'll teach you is if you fall out of the boat, do not stand up immediately because your feet get lodged under rocks, the current takes you under, and you will drown. So you assume a seated position, facing downriver, tips of toes out of the water, and you steer away from the rocks so you don't crash. That's what we all feel in new positions, new careers, new anything in life. Like, whoa, I don't think I can take this current, right? Just let me steer. But that counts because a lot of people will just drown and float.
Yeah, and that is where perhaps some of our listeners are finding themselves on this particular week. They're feeling a bit like that. And, one of the things that we want this podcast to serve as is like a reboot moment. Like listening, I was listening to this podcast and I was just thinking to myself, like, this is me. This is me. I got to do something about it. I got to change. I got to make a difference here. So we've been talking about, comfort zone and pushing past that or pushing through it in many ways. And I totally understand, why electricians go to the panels and the plumbers go to the water heaters and HVAC guys go to the system replacement. Like, we're all pushers for revenue. Companies are pushers for revenue. Guys are pushers for income. And if they're at a particular company that's pushing for revenue, their income is probably based upon the revenue. So.
And there's the whole client aspect of that, where if you change an outlet for a client that they hadn't used in 7 years anyway, it's like, okay, cool, thanks. And it's, $300. You're probably getting a 1-star review on top of it when they go find out it was $16 at Lowe's. But on the other hand, if you do a redevice or a rewire, you're a hero to them on top of it, on top
Right.
of them spending 20 grand or whatever it is. So it's like there's a multitude of reasons to go straight for the big ticket from every single aspect of your job. It's a win-win-win.
But generally, right, like we're scared is, at least in my opinion, you ask my prescription, right, for comfort zone, go back to being a technician. Like I was telling Brian earlier today, as electricians, we get lucky. And at my feet sits my code book, 901 pages. It is a black and white book with no gray area. It says, this is what code is. And I believe in it because it's for safety, right? Like it changes for safety to save lives. So we get that. And I think at a certain point, that comfort zone that kicks in for technicians and safety advisors, comfort advisors, all the above, is we get very used to selling and we forget the fact of what our job really is. So my prescription is to go back and be a little bit more technical. Go and learn something new about the industry, right? Like if you don't know about smoke detectors, if you don't know about what, I cannot, like I said, how to flush a toilet as a plumber. Hey, great at what I do. I am not a plumber.
We actually flush toilets the same way as everybody else. We just push the lever button.
Well, but go back and learn something new. Why do we prescribe redevices? Why do we talk about it? What's USB? What's ground systems? What's GFI really do? What do the new GFIs do? Dig in technically again, and you'll be willing to talk about it and branch out a little bit because you'll be confident about it. It's still going to be scary. It's something new, but you'll be okay with it, or at least more.
So Matt, talk about, off air, you had mentioned the concept of blinders, right? First, explain what you mean when you say blinders, because not everybody may be familiar with where that concept comes from. But why do people get blinders, and what does taking them off even look like?
Blinders happen because we just get fixed on one item and one item only, right? Like that is what a blinder is. I'm only looking at this and this alone. I think we get blinders because our paychecks get nicer. The recognition happens. And that comfort zone sets in of, I'm good with this, so why would I have to do anything more because this is successful? Taking them off opens you up as a technician or anybody in any level to failure. And people don't want to do that. But taking them off allows you to grow. Just learning more as a technician. Here's a novel idea. What if you actually listen to the customer? To listen, not to get to that certain thing that you're comfortable with. Maybe they have needs, right? This is relationship building at its core when we run a call, when we work with people, build technicians, build managers, all the rest. Listen to them and build a relationship, and it won't be as scary anymore when you go, oh, wait a minute, you want that too? Okay, I can do that for you, right? Removing the blinders means you open your life up, though. Means you open yourself up in every level, not just for failure, suffering, all the hardships that happen, but the growth from a decent technician to a great technician, or a good technician to then a great technician. You can be salesman. That's fine. We all are. Everybody, the whole world revolves around sales. We know it, right? But you don't have to be the dirty word salesman that we all initially think of at some point. When we get into it, doesn't make you worse, makes you a better technician when you take those blinders off and quit just focus on what you want. Focus on what they need you to do, what they need really.
So Matt,
Hey,
that's
I
a
mean
scary
that.
concept. That's a scary concept for a lot of people.
It is. But the minute you quit caring about that, that's when the money happens. Like it really is. I'm not saying you don't make money if you care about that, so don't get me wrong. But the minute you go, you know what, my money doesn't matter. I'm going to change this person's life in the way that I can change it in whatever way that is. And technicians, that's technically, right? What can I do for them while I'm in their home? But when that's the focus, that money, the money's a byproduct. The revenue's a byproduct of what you're doing out there.
When I hear you talk about this, Matt, it made me think of the medical field. So, predominantly in the medical field, there's two ways that hospitals make money. One is through testing, and the other one is through procedures. And so, it's no wonder why, if you've ever gone to a doctor, they order up panels and panels and panels of tests. And then eventually there's a procedure or an inpatient, outpatient experience or something like that. But if doctors forget along the way, there's an actual human on the other side of this equation that they need to have bedside manner, that, the cough, the limp, the earache, the skin dryness, like all these things that humans have, and they just go straight to like, oh, well, we got to run some tests, Matt. We got to do this. It really does strip away the heart of the doctor, which is like, well, number one, do no harm, right? And then number two, to care about the holistic individual, the entirety of the person, not just why they came in, not just the symptoms they're experiencing, but the entire package. And believe it or not, when a doctor actually approaches you, not only concerned about the blinders of like the thing that you're complaining about right now, but actually examines the entire mat, the entire human, other things do come up of concern, of worthwhile to be addressed. And those may be like, hey, Matt, you need to correct this, otherwise it's going to cause problems. Or, hey, Matt, your life could actually be improved if you did this. And I think both of those scenarios are applicable into the home services as well. You just got to stop looking at the only problem that the homeowner is complaining about right now.
Right. No, that's what we are, is prescriptive. It's what we should be, is prescriptive. We can save you money as we go. I mean, I can do this now that saves you this. It's never been cheaper than right now. We all know that, right? Like it always gets more expensive, but the more prescriptive you can be, it's because of your relationship with that homeowner. You talk about the doctors and the hospitals. I've had that life before. We all know what we think of doctors and hospitals, but if you've ever had a good one, like they're more valuable than anything. Like you don't leave that doctor. You keep going to that doctor. Where'd that doctor go? Hey, can I see that doctor? You don't want any other way because they care about you as the human being. That's what we're there for. And a home in our reality. The money, like I said, byproduct. The big ticket, byproduct. How can I help them? Okay, receptacle out. Great, let's talk about it. But maybe there's other things that are happening, right? Like, let me go take a look. Do you mind if I go do this, right? Hey, have you thought about this? Like, just bring it up and don't get so one-sided. We talk the high performers and the big tickets and things like that. Brian brought up $300 receptacle change. That's the other comfort zone, the repair. Just like the testing or the procedure. Hey, I'm going to do the repair. Because that's what all companies do before service. True service, right? Is not just that repair. It's the prescriptions. It's the evaluations. It's the solutions. And it's the choice. Hey, what would you like to do here? Right? Like it's your body. It's your house. What's your choice? I'm just telling you my professional opinion.
So I feel, and that's a great point, Matt, and I feel like we've done a good bit for the high performers who might be kind of stuck in what they're doing currently and have the blinders on. Also, who you just touched on there was the mid to lower level technician who is all about the system and the engineering and typically very little about the relationship with the client, although sometimes, but certainly never about improving the overall quality of the system with upgrades or upsells or whatever you'd want to call it. But what about the really young, and I don't mean age-wise, but I mean young to their trade person who's just gotten into a truck, and like all this stuff you're talking about seems like, and when we think, I want to say a decade away, but when we think about something as a decade away, it just might as well not exist, right? So what do we have to say to those young bucks, so to speak, in the trades who are like, everything you're talking about just feels a million miles away?
You pick up one piece and you put it in play. Pick up one that relates to you, right? Like, okay, fine. You walk in for the receptacle. You may be comfortable with that. At least take out the next one and the next one. Just find something more. Just something small. If that's what it takes. Comfort zone, just something small to start reaching out past that and put it in play. And when it fails, that's fine. Go, I'm going to try it again. It's just something small. It's not going to affect me. What's the worst you're going to get? No. Here, know a lot as young technicians, new technicians, knows normal at that stage. That's okay. You're used to hearing that. Just find something new, one thing, and work it in, and just keep doing it until it starts to click. And then another new thing, and then another new thing, and then another new thing, and then another new thing.
So, Matt, push into that concept that you were talking about a moment ago, that sometimes the home service professional will just revert to only the fix, right? Okay, so fine. I pushed into something new. I did the extra outlet. I pulled one more of these. And I'm like, oh, okay, Matt, well, now we have two fixes to make. What does breaking out of the comfort zone and exploring fix, replacement options, being creative with how you're holistically approaching the home and the homeowner, as opposed to just we just got to fix it. We just got to fix it. What does that look like?
Recognizing the fact that that problem exists already at one spot, it's going to exist at others, or at least going to happen at some point, right? Like problems don't just one thing, happens and then it never happens again. The system's gotten to that age. So what that looks like is, okay, great. You've got two receptacles, outlets, whatever, that that there's issues at. Mrs. Smith, can you show me to the one you use the most? Can I just check that out too? Recognize it's happening everywhere. And so the $300 becomes every time I come to your house, $300, $300, $300, $300, $300. So technicians that just think that's the best option, do the math. Go count them in your own head and go $300 times however many there are versus, wait a minute, can I prescribe something that's not going to cost that much? Well, every time this possibly happens, it costs them that money. I can do something that saves them that money and that heartache down the line. That's service versus repair.
Right. And the service part is, I think you made the point earlier, why did most people get into the industry to begin with? Inherently there is a desire to serve, whether you've identified it as that or not, the willingness to walk into somebody's house and fix something for them is servanthood at the heart. It's not always done with the best attitude or the right motives.
And I would say,
but it exists.
I wish this was the case with the trades, but I think if people were voluntarily walking into the trades, then there would be a lot of that. But for the most part, most of us in the trades just didn't have another choice. And you can see it play out in the giant trade-based Facebook groups. There's one, I won't say the name, but it's an HVAC one where an HVAC guy recently said, enough with this being on call in the summer in HVAC. I'll never work for a company that runs nights and weekends again. And there's 100,000 people in this group, and it might 8,000 likes, and just 9 out of 10 people jumping on and saying the exact, yeah, screw them. Air conditioning didn't even exist till X number of years ago. They can wait until Monday. And it's all these people kind of jumping on it. And, when you're reading it, you kind of feel well, yeah, man, just wait, But then I'm just time out. And I actually didn't chime in this one, although I probably will now that we're talking about it because I feel guilty. But where's the servanthood, man? Okay, it's not the opportune time, but you're not on call 365 days a year either. You're on call for your on-call shift, and hopefully it's not too grueling. And if you own an HVAC company, you definitely, in the summer, in the hot places, you got to give people time to recover. But where's the sense of, man, this family has no air conditioning, and I can be the one who shows up and saves the day?
I think that falls in the 25%. And I know y'all don't know what I mean when I say 25%. I think 25% of tradesmen can make it as service in service. 25% are truly meant for the service. And there's nothing wrong with the other 75% that do the new construction, that do the commercial, that do the remodels, that do all of that. We have to have that too. But it is a servant's heart at its core. When you're a true service tech, like you care about that home and you find ways to help them, whether they know it or not in the long run. But Brian, I agree with you. Most people are not going into this and going, hey, I get to help people. You know, I just wanted ramen noodles when I got into it. I got to eat.
That's true. And that is how we get into it. But I think there just needs to be a push from people like the three of us with voices and people who actually listen to say, let's make the trades a servanthood again. I mean, let's put the people that we serve first. And in doing that, we get to make 100, 200, 300, 400,000 a year running service calls. We get to. And you can still have the highest customer reviews in your city and make that kind of money and make those kinds of sales. We know people who are doing it, who have lifelong customers that would tattoo their name on them and yet still are pushing out 3, 4, 5 million a year.
Yep. Oh, you get more 1-star reviews from the $300 jobs than you ever do the high price jobs, the higher tickets, because it takes that servant. You know, I mean, I know we started with comfort zone and big ticket focus only, right? But when you are serving that customer, the big tickets happen and you get the 5-star reviews naturally. It's not that you're focused on the one item. It's that you're focused on the customer and all the items that they need. And then it just happens. Like you got to follow the system. You got to do the steps. You got to say the things, right? But it just falls into place because I'll go back to don't care about your paycheck. Care about the customer. Care about the job. Care about the lifestyle. And it'll happen. And for clarity, anybody that is listening, when I say 25% of this industry is made for the service side, we all think we're better than the other technician anyway. We do it. Brian and I are joking around. He can't help it. He's a plumber. I won't hold it against him. But we all do it anyway. We all go, hey, wait a minute. I'm better than that guy. Sitting in a room of peers, we do it. And we go, I'm better than him in some way. So if you are, and you're listening, you already think you're better than the next technician to the other people, prove it. Be the servant. Open your eyes up. Be willing to talk about it. Be willing to put other things into play and prove you're that 25%. That's not an actual number from a study, right? Like I'm shooting from the hip.
We would expect nothing less from an electrician.
Yep. Yep.
Matt, it makes me think of a guy at my shop, Charlie Whitmer. He just retired. Good old Charlie. 46 years as a plumber.
Oh, man. Congrats to him.
The guy has gone all at my company, 46 years. He has gone through every iteration of commercial to new construction to residential to, he's seen the team turn over more times than I've been in the trade in years. Like the dude is a legend. And when I say that, I mean, people called in and would refuse service by any other plumber besides Charlie. No, if I can't have Charlie, I'll wait. Sir, he's off for like 5 days for vacation. Nope, no problem. Just let me know when he's back and we'll, sir, your basement is flooding. That's fine. We'll put some fish down there and the kids will have fun. It wasn't quite to that level, but people wanted Charlie.
That's service.
Because Charlie was a servant.
Yep.
Because when Charlie came there was no concern about his motives. There was no blinders on his eyes. He was just there to be Charlie and to take good care of you. And you know what? People appreciate that. And to your point, Matt, the money will follow and the respect will come and the reviews will pour in and you'll build your own book of business and return clientele and guaranteed work and everything along the way. And you've done it on the basis of servanthood.
Very much so. That is legendary. If he made it that long, bravo.
Yeah.
I'm at it 3 decades now, and I question it on a daily basis.
Well, this has been excellent stuff, Matt. And as we bring things in for a landing, if some of these things or concepts are resonating with people, or they're like, dude, I'm in a comfort zone. I need somebody to like slap me out of it, or they just want to learn more about what you're doing there at Apex, where's a great place to find you or get connected with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook as well, like everybody in the world, right? Can't tell you it's the most professional on Facebook for me, but it's gotten better. But I am on LinkedIn. Heck, I got no trouble giving my phone number out. You want it?
Let's hear it.
Shoot.
All right. 828-545-3900. Feel free. My life consists of a bunch of meetings to talk about other meetings, where I'm going into that one meeting to talk about that meeting that we had last month where we're planning the other meeting. If I do not pick up, text me. I will happily help. Happily.
Love it. Love it. So as we wrap things up, Matt, the last question that I have for you goes back to Jiu Jitsu. You mentioned that you have been practicing it. It's been a while for you, and that's okay, but you still understand the concepts. You're currently a blue belt, if I heard correctly, which is the second level of a 5-tier system, with white being the beginning and black being the top. And I want you to wrap us up on this concept, because I'm sure you've seen it in your career. If you've been 3 decades in the trades and you've gone from apprentice the whole way up to a national director, like, oversight of an entire industry, basically, you've seen it. What happens when somebody gets to that blue belt level and they say, I'm not willing to commit what it takes to go to that purple belt. I'm not willing to commit. Like, I'm good. This is as far as I want to go. And it could be for any number of reasons. It could be because I'm not willing to invest the time, energy, and effort. It could be because I'm scared that if I try to live at that speed or that pace or that success rate or whatever, that I'm not going to be able to consistently hold it there. And it's, I'm going to get called out, punching above my pay grade, so to speak. It could be, just a laziness or a complacency. There's a lot of things that go into it, but I'm sure you've seen it where guys get to a certain level and then they stop pushing. Like, they were motivated. You were motivated to go from white to blue at some point in your life. And I'm not calling you out and saying, like, why aren't you a purple? I'm just saying, like, in a career standpoint, like, sometimes this happens. People will get to a certain level and then, like, they just get complacent in that place, and, like, it's far enough for them. They don't need to go any farther. So what do you say to somebody who's in that world right now? They may not even know it, but, like, they've settled for less than. What do you say to them as encouragement to wrap up our podcast?
I'll say 2 things. First off, if you're satisfied with that and you're happy with that and you find joy with that in your life, more power to you. I'm not built like that, and I don't think most people are. I think you circle up with people that are smarter than you at that point, that are more successful than you at that point, and you just soak up the experience from each other and have the example, and it will naturally lead you to continue forward. If you're struggling with it yourself, listen to the Waste No Day, listen to motivation, Audible on the way to work, etc. Just at least surround yourself and immerse yourself in the environment, and it will naturally start to continue your growth.
Love that, Matt. And just one more segue on that question. If I'm in a leadership role, or a manager, or a sales manager, general manager, ops manager, whatever, team leader, and I see somebody and I'm like, that person is settling. There's no reason that person should not be above where they are right now. What would you say if you're in their shoes? Like, do you confront them? Do you encourage them? Do you pull them aside? Like, how do you get motivation back into somebody's life when you see that?
Obviously, goal setting's a go-to, right? Like, what are their goals? You're talking to them, you're doing one-on-ones, goal boards, all the good stuff, right? There's a few different methods. Me, I'm confrontational, and I don't mind it. I mean, people I'm confrontational with may mind it. I pull them aside. I pull them aside and go, hey, look, I think you're worth more than this. And sometimes you have to have that as somebody to go, I see you, and I don't know that you see you, but I do. Will you let me help you get to where I know you can be? And at least ask for them, or ask that it's okay to provide them that help. last story on my part. A priest, very good friend of mine, when I was 23, came to me. I had never set a goal in my life, ever, and came to me and he said, you need to get your license. I said, don't need my license. I work under everybody else's license. Who needs that? And he said, no, you need your license. You're going somewhere in this world. I had no money. He said, I'll pay for it. And he was a Franciscan, so I know he had no money, but he paid for it. He paid for my books. He let me pick a course. And he said, I want you to do this and I will support you to do it. And I didn't know that he was suffering to do so in our reality, because Franciscans have no money if you don't know. And he put that in front of me and he said, just give me a time frame you think you can do this in. And I said, 2 years. And just knowing that I had that person there that thought that believed that said they saw that in me, I did it in 1 year. I was licensed by the time I was 25. And that's the GM. That's the ops manager. That's a service manager. That's what they are for their technicians and their employees. You are that person that can say, no, I see more. Like, I appreciate what you're saying. You're comfortable, whatever. But I got to tell you, man and woman, you can do more. Let me help you get there. You tell me, what do you want? I'm willing to do this. Like, put it out there for them.
Great place to wrap up, Matt. A little encouragement and a little challenge in the same way. So appreciate you staying up late with us tonight and giving us some great content to focus on. Even a little bit of love for the electricians. They need it every once in a while. They get tired and bored. So appreciate that, Matt. It was good talking to you. And thanks so much for being on the show.
No, I appreciate it, fellas. It was an honor.
Appreciate you coming on, Matt. Let's do it again, man.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
Hey, that's a wrap for this episode. We hope that you enjoyed your time with Matt. It was fantastic hearing from him and just his life story, not only in terms of what he's doing now, but where he came from and the journey along the way. A great opportunity to reflect upon comfort zones and blinders in today's episode in terms of examining whether you have fallen into a place of complacency or into a comfort zone of just a pattern that you need to break out of. And it's a great opportunity to listen to this episode and do some self-examination, or to ask somebody to speak into your life who might be able to see that more clearly than you can yourself. And lastly, a great encouragement there to challenge others, including yourself, but specifically others, to be stepping up to a higher level that you see in them that perhaps they have settled for less than. So thanks so much for Matt. He left his personal cell phone as well as his contact information on the show. Hit him up and let him know that you appreciated this episode. We know that we did as well. And of course, share it around as you can. We want to leave you now with our weekly challenge, which continues to be the same and even more important after this episode, to choose to wake up each and every morning and waste no day.